great. You know how many?
I'd like to be interested in seeing kind of he has like a blog, MPA blog. Charles. It's on PIS. So you might see the mayor come here.
Greg, you got something over there? You got some people over there?
Yeah, I got 2 more sound bites and Naveen's over there.
She's got the whole block.
Hey! How are you, love?
Hello, we see you on Facebook.
Is he still working?
No, I live over here in 97. But the only thing I see anybody know because I don't know anybody.
Well, now we're all
Only
here.
the old timers like you.
Yeah, most of the days I don't recognize other people. But all Hugh Sneddon is here. Did you see
I
you?
saw you.
Yeah, I mean, oh my God. Yeah, there's a lot of new people. Even DCPI. You know, I was at an event yesterday. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah. Living life. Yeah, we're good, man.
anybody else show up?
I think everybody was on the side. I saw William briefly. Eric is over there.
Oh, the guest is there.
Africa and all this.
Yes, I saw your African trip. I watched your whole African trip. All the animals and stuff. I was a flight.
I took
One stop.
no, one stop. And on the way back out. There's no way. There's one airline that goes non-stop, which is Air Canada, and that's the way. My friends, other than that, don't do it non-stop. No entertainment. It's like old time.
The African airlines are so fine that you have no overflow.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Especially for like, I think it's like 16 hours.
Oh, I cannot imagine it.
Nah.
My legs, I'm like, I can't do it. That's great. Traveling.
We can also tell you that this is the 1, 2, and 3 that operates on the west side, but because these trains share tracks here and there, some 4 and 5 trains share tracks, and they might be rerouted, and those are the trains generally on the east side where the overwhelming majority, we have a tremendous amount of people who are on the trains right now. The good news, at least from what we're trying to deduce from hearing from witnesses, from hearing from these reports, number 1, 18 injuries, okay, minor injuries, no major injuries, and now it appears we're looking at some shots that somebody shot on the train. Typically we see passengers who are seeming to be very calm, and it looks like right now they're either being evacuated or just waiting to be evacuated. We can see firefighters on the train, and this looks like it's going very smoothly.
Yeah, and we also heard a witness earlier that said that they heard and felt a boom, and then there was smoke. It looks as though, from these pictures, from this particular passenger's point of view of the video that we're looking at, we don't see any sign of smoke, and people do appear to be very calm as they are now exiting off those train cars.
And the other thing to point out is, at least appears in these pictures, that no one, I think, had to climb down to the tracks. It looks like a portion of that train was still in the station, which says a few things. Number 1, like I said, it'd be a much smoother evacuation. And number 2, it's likely, and we don't have full confirmation of all this yet, but it's very likely, and we were talking to a professor just a few moments ago who sort of echoed this, is that this all would have happened at a very slow rate of speed. When we heard those 2 witnesses talk, and it's only 2 witnesses, but it is very telling, one woman said the train shook, and she pointed to one side of the train as if they were brushing up against something. She also said she didn't describe anyone flying forward, as you might imagine, in some sort of collision. And now we're getting shots outside the train, and once again, we saw this video before the firefighters going in.
So what are the priorities here? Priorities, obviously, is everyone's safety. For those that were injured, they will be treated, their injuries assessed. If they are serious, they will be transported to the hospital. And then, of course, just getting a handle of the situation, the safety of the platform, the safety of those people that are now in and around that subway area that may have been looking to take their ride home during this commute. They will now be greeted with police officers and FDNY in and around this station, basically saying that they're going to have to find another way home.
Yeah, which is very often the difficult part. Perhaps we will get more information from the MTA about bus service that's going to be brought in. Another thing to point out, and you just have to give firefighters, rescue crews so much credit. Yes, they drill for this, but when it happens, things pop up that you don't anticipate, and among them is getting people off the train who are perhaps elderly, perhaps a mother with a few kids. And that's not easy stuff, particularly when children can be frightened, people can be frightened. And as Christine and I have been pointing out throughout this, it appears that this was calm, orderly, that didn't appear to be any panic. And right now this is video probably taken about an hour ago or so, there was no sense of panic and no sense of that terrible urgency that you always get when you fear that the situation could be worse.
Absolutely. The passengers that we heard from, the eyewitnesses that gave us their accounts of what happened, they were clearly shaken up. I mean, if this is something that obviously you don't want to experience underground here in the city. However, they did not appear to be frightened by any means, just startled is how I would describe it. And then, of course, the people in the video that we saw earlier from inside the train, they did appear to be exiting the train and the train platform in a very orderly manner, a very calm manner. The police activity and also the activity from the FDNY does not seem to be very rushed. They do appear to have a very good handle on the situation. In the meantime, we can tell you that there is a service alert that the subway system, the MTA, has put out there on social media. They're saying that the service to the 1, 2, and 3 line is now closed. You're going to have to find alternative routes. We're told that riders are being told that they do have the option to take the A, B, C, and D trains. Of course, there's always the bus as well, if you want to remain above ground after an experience like this. But, you know, we also saw, I noticed one rider coming off the train giving the sign of the cross.
Yeah.
So he obviously was very thankful that this situation did not end up a lot worse.
Some major questions right now, and some major problems probably for the MTA. The big question is, what we don't know is if that train can move. Is it disabled? We don't know that right now. Number 2, what about the work train? Is that disabled? Is that blocking a number of tracks? And then that will really tell the tale as to whether service can resume. Number 1, get the train out of the way. Number 2, get the work train out of the way. And then you decide, okay, if they're out of the way, the tracks are in order, there's no damage caused by the collision, and that's got to be checked too. So I would say we're in the ballpark of a minimum of a few hours, if not many more hours, to get service back again. And as you point out, the MTA, they say they will have a press conference pretty soon when they'll start alerting people. That's the first alert that we saw that we just put up a few minutes ago, which just basically gave the basics. And on scene right now is CBS 2's Doug Williams, who, Doug, I don't know where you're stationed right now, but what can you tell us about what it looks like right now?
Dick, it's a huge police and fire presence, as you can imagine. We're right on the corner of 96th and Broadway, and the first thing that we did when we arrived on the scene was talk to a passenger of the subway cars who just told us her name was Evelyn. We'll get you that interview, and we'll be able to air it on our streaming platform in just a moment. She just described in detail what she experienced, which was what she said was a destroyed subway car. The subway poles bending, the floor had kind of caved in, one side higher than the other. She described seeing the injuries only when she left her car and went to evacuate and was being evacuated by FDNY. She says that when she left the car, she saw some injured being attended to, and also just described the feeling of a jolt when the collision happened. She said people's belongings, phones, AirPods, everything that they were holding when flying across the subway car. She described it as scary. You could see she had been crying. She was emotional talking about the experience, but that the 2 subway cars that collided, the MTA service car and the northbound 1 train, were so close together that they needed to be pried apart by FDNY firefighters upon arrival at the scene. So it gives you a sense of, and so far, again, luckily what we're hearing are few minor injuries, nothing severe, at least that's what I had heard last. But it gives you a sense of how pressing this felt as a scene when this collision first happened. And obviously, as you can see behind me, ladder 14 making its way by, we've seen this really since we arrived, police and fire presence as they continue this process of making sure below ground is safe and that everybody who was on these subway cars is evacuated to the hospitals, those that need it, Dick.
I'm sure you've been able to either, is just how this collision happened. Now, is it, we don't know, were they on the same tracks? Were they joining at two separate points? Was one train shoved over towards another track? It's not clear. We had a series of interviews on before. You just spoke to a woman, but you were describing that the two cars had to be pried apart. That would indicate to me that they were only on the same track. What are your indications? You may not have them based on this one interview, but what did you deduce when you spoke to this woman?
Yeah, I believe our control room has the interview, and her first answer, she describes in detail what she remembers in terms of what had to be done to get those two cars apart. And I was loosely quoting just based on the conversation I had across the street. So let's see what she said. What she saw as a passenger on the train. I think we have it now. Let's take a listen. Do you guys have me? Okay. Sorry about that. Obviously, this is a breaking situation. Our control room is going to get some interviews and not surveillance video, I should say, but the passenger video that we've seen. Evelyn had video as well, and that is being sent to us, and we'll show you just what that looked like. And again, just to reiterate what the passenger Evelyn told me, she described a jolt feeling when the two trains collided. And again, this was a MTA service train and a northbound 1 train. The other thing that she mentioned was that there had been delays to the point where they were not making stops until they got to the 96th Street station. So they had been dealing with delays. She said she was originally, I believe, on the 4 train, got off because there were delays, and was told, okay, we're stopping at 96th Street. And once they got there, in mere moments from there, those two trains collided. So again, you'll hear directly from her just what she experienced and what she saw in terms of how close that service train and the passenger train were when they after the collision happened. It sounds like they were on the same track, Dick, to your question. But again, as we start to spend more time here and there are passengers who are kind enough to stay and talk to us and tell us about their experience, we'll learn a little bit more about just what happened. But again, so far we're hearing just minor injuries, nothing severe, but we'll continue to update you and bring you the very latest information, Dick.
All right, Doug Williams, thank you. And let's just right now reiterate what we know. We understand that an MTA work train collided with the northbound 1 train, as Doug pointed out, carrying passengers between 96th and 103rd Street. So far, we know there are at least 18 injuries, but we're told they're all minor injuries. Earlier, we talked to passengers, and they described a rather raucous situation. Doug described a situation where it sounds like there was a lot of damage to at least 1 car of that train. Perhaps it was focused in one area where the collision was. We can tell you now the MTA is warning, as you might have imagined, that service on the 1, 2, and 3 line is being grossly impacted. The evening commute is being affected in a bad way, no doubt about that. And we can also tell you that this is going to have a spiraling effect to other trains. We're told that there are other lines you can go to, and certainly not a bad idea to take the bus and avoid going underground. Absolutely.
I'm just looking through some of the social media. Governor Hochul did send out a tweet saying that she has been briefed on this derailment and that emergency personnel with the MTA now working to keep passengers safe as they leave the area. We're also continuing to hear from eyewitnesses here at the scene. Here is one passenger, a gentleman, who describes what he experienced.
The whole train collided. I thought the concrete on top of the train was going to fall in. I thought the subway was going to fall in on us, like concrete.
And you pull out your cell phone?
Huh?
You pull out your cell phone?
I pulled out my cell phone and took a video. That's in the midst of while we still waiting for the firemen to show up. Yes, I did.
All right, once again, this gentleman is describing something much more, shall we say, violently than the other two witnesses described. They rocked a little, but I think it was very much apparent that depending on where you were in that train, then you find out whether or not what area the train was impacted. It sounded that at least one car had some damage to it, and we're looking at a live picture. Obviously, Doug Williams is working the scene with his camera crew right now. And if that is the case, I would imagine it's going to be some time before they can move that train.
Yes, it sounds as though, according to what Doug has been able to determine since he arrived there at the scene, he said that the two trains had to be pried apart by the FDNY. So obviously those people that were closer to the front of that train, it was pulling into the station at 96th and Broadway, and then at that point of impact with the MTA work car, those were the passengers that would have felt that impact the most. But you can see crews are still there at the scene. Traffic is being rerouted for emergency personnel to be able to do their work there as this investigation now begins to take place. And we hope to have some more information within the next half an hour, as the MTA is scheduled to be able to give us some more information at their scheduled 5 p.m. news conference, which may actually happen, as we're now being told by our newsroom, at 4:50. You know, obviously the MTA wants to be able to get out the information as soon as possible. This is not something to take lightly. You know, in our subway system, 18 people hurt. Although their injuries are not serious, they were still, from what we're told, were hurt. And you know, this is a city service, and we all expect to be taken care of, and we all expect to be safe on these city services. We were speaking to a professor earlier, Robert Paswell, who is with CUNY. He also ran the Chicago subway system. And Dick, as you pointed out in a question that you directed to him, he said his big question is, how did this happen? Why did that work train, or why didn't that operator of the subway car not know that each other was there?
Yeah, and interestingly, we heard from that one witness that Doug was describing, and she was saying that there were many, many delays along the way. In fact, she had to switch trains. So we don't know if there was something ahead that was already causing delays, and that may have trickled down into this situation. Another interesting thing that Professor Paswell of CUNY said to us, he ran the Chicago subway system, and he said, obviously we have a great reaction to this. And he said the reason for that is, and there were only 18 minor injuries, we can stress, he says it doesn't happen very often.
No.
I mean, when you think of the millions of people that ride the New York City subway system, and really subway systems around the world, I mean, I think we're only second to some subway stations in China and Shanghai and Beijing, etc., in the number of the volume of passengers that we carry, that we see so few of these. And one more thing to point out is not only were the firefighters, are they drilled in getting people out of there, but these subway conductors and everybody on board that train that knew instantly they had to get things going. Because remember, it's going to be a response. The New York City Fire Department is very quick, but it takes a while, number one, to get to the scene, number two, to get your equipment downstairs. So I would imagine that the conductors on these trains did a pretty smooth job based on the way these people were evacuated in a relatively short period of time, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Let's go back to the scene now. Doug Williams is gathering some more information with us. And Doug, I understand that you have a passenger there next to you. We'll go ahead and turn it over to you to see what that eyewitness has to say.
Yeah, Christine and Dick, so this is Evelyn. And Evelyn, I was just kind of trying to describe to our anchors in studio what you saw and what you witnessed. Can you tell our audience what you saw?
Basically, to keep it short, when the trains collided, everyone was doing their own thing like usual. Everyone was on their phone. I was on my phone listening to music with my AirPods on. And like I said, I like my music pretty loud. But even through noise cancellation and everything, you heard how loud we crashed into the other train. It was really loud that the other train literally got destroyed. Like the whole floor was just crunched up together. The seats they didn't even look like seats no more. The poles were open. It was just really bad. smoke started coming inside the cars. Like it smelled a lot like gas, and it was really bad. Everyone was panicking because like it's gas. There's lots of us in there. People started getting claustrophobic. People dropped everything in the jolts. I hit my head against the window. People were getting hurt basically, and that happened like about 2:58 p.m. It happened, and from there everyone was just in shock. Everyone was asking each other, "Are you guys okay?" We looked directly across out the window, and right next to us, like it wasn't even like too far that the train was right next to us, and we looked inside, and again it's completely destroyed. And we had to wait like a good until like 3:30. Firefighters started walking inside, and they started they came through the train that got destroyed. They started trying to like open that door. They got it open, and then they started trying to open our door. So where I was standing, and after like a good few minutes and a lot of tools, they finally got it to open, and they said children, women first. One by one we all started coming out the train into the one that got destroyed in order to come out through this stop. And while we were walking through it, it was just like I said, completely destroyed. It didn't look like a regular train. It was just bent, broken, and it was just really destroyed.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you. Your train car was not the one that the one you were on was not the one that looked physically destroyed. It was the one that you'd run into.
It just got like slanted. Like everyone was out balanced because it just got like slanted, but it got really, really hit. But the one that got really hurt was the other one, but it was out of service. No one was in there. It was just like not moving at all, and we're the ones that crashed into it, and thankfully there was no one in there, so no one got hurt. And when we were walking outside, like I said, completely destroyed. You can't even walk straight because you had to hold on or like try to hold your balance because it was
so slanted. And so the moment you described over half an hour, right? You were waiting in there. What were those moments like? What were some of the other passengers saying?
People were mad. Some people were really mad. They were saying, "How did this happen? How could this happen?" Again, never in our years of living here has this ever happened. The children, they were crying. They were scared. People were crying. People were having like panic attacks. Other people were trying to calm others down, saying it's fine. They're gonna come get us. We'll be out of here. And me personally, like I was crying because it was really scary. And,
yeah. Well, Evelyn, I can't thank you enough for staying here. I know it's freezing, but your kind of description of what you witnessed, and I'm so glad you're okay. You hit your head, you said, on the glass, the door behind you. Were you shaken by that, or was it something that you...
Honestly, I think with the amount of like panic and how scared I was, I didn't feel it then. I was just more worried, but I know that I was hyperventilating most of the time, and like my hands were just really shaky, and I couldn't even hold my phone straight. So. Well,
thank you for sticking around and talking to us about it. We really appreciate it and glad you're okay. So again, this is the same passenger, Evelyn, that I spoke to moments ago on tape, and as you can describe or hear her describe just those moments of the impact, and then the long wait, upwards of half an hour, that the passengers had to go through to let the sort of panic sink in. When are we going to get out of here? It's starting to smell like gas. And I think Evelyn perfectly described sort of what that sense was for the train passengers. And it's also a good reminder that when we say service train, it's an unoccupied passenger train. So as Evelyn said, she had to walk through her train car, which was not as destroyed as the out-of-commission train, the MTA service train, and that's what she described as being so slanted that they needed to hold on to walk, and that, she said, was what took the worst damage. So again, we cover things like this, and we're always happy to hear minor injuries only, as it appears to be the case here, luckily, but again, just the sense of terror, clearly right after it happened, that lasted over a half an hour while they waited for FDNY to get in there and rescue them. Dick, Christine?
Yeah, Doug, that does sound very frightening. A half hour is a long time. Doug Williams on the scene. Thank you, Doug.
30 minutes, that probably felt like 3 hours.
3 hours, imagine
For
that.
sure.
So 18 minor injuries. That's the good news. We don't know how long it's going to take to get these trains running again. We know the 1, 2, and 3 train delayed. If you're on the Upper West Side, you're going to want to avoid it. You want to take buses, or you just might want to hoof it. It may not be a bad idea. And we will bring continuing coverage of this here on CBS New York. And tune in at 5 p.m. for CBS 2 News at 5 for much more on this derailment. But once again, only 18 injuries. We will see you at 5 o'clock.
NYC before, and I look across the street, and they're like, let's go to Doug Williams, and I'm like, I am right behind this guy.
employees out here? You did? Oh. I would like to know where's the buses are. I know we can't take the train. But
everybody say, I can hear people go Central Park West and what is the B or something like that. I'm not sure. They say Central Park West. And there ain't no buses or anything for anybody as of right now.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I guess I gotta vote now. Thank you.
Was the train closed?
This is breaking news.
Good evening, I'm Christine Johnson.
And I'm Dick Brennan. The MTA is holding a press conference right now following a subway train collision. Let's listen in.
Just wanted to talk a little about this incident today. So at about 3 o'clock, we had two number one trains derail here at 96th Street Station, both northbound. One was in revenue service. It did have customers on the train. The other was out of service. It had been vandalized, and our crew was attempting to fix that issue. The trains literally at slow speed, thankfully, bumped into each other just north of the station. we were able to evacuate a number of customers. I'll let the chief and our colleagues from fire and EMT talk a little bit about that process. I want to thank them, by the way, for, as usual, their quick response. You know, a couple things. Thankfully, there were no serious injuries. Obviously, two trains should not be bumping into one another. We are going to get to the bottom of that. What we do know is that the out-of-service train had been vandalized. A number of emergency cords had been pulled earlier by someone. They were able to reset all of them except one, and that was the reason why that train was still stuck in the station. It was being operated in the midsection, so from the conductor position, although there was a train operator at the front of the train and two train supervisors as well. So 4 employees on the train that was out of service, and as I said, a couple of hundred customers on the train as well. Look, at the end of the day, thankfully this was low speed. We'll get to the bottom of this and make sure that whatever occurred doesn't happen again. Lastly, I do want to say that notwithstanding the lack of serious injuries, it's a little bit messy down there. It's going to take us a while to get this service back and running. We have crews down there now. I expect we'll be out there all night. And my hope is we will have service restored tomorrow for rush hour, but I cannot guarantee that. So I'm going to ask our customers who use the 1, 2, and 3 lines to continue to watch our website, our apps, and see how we're proceeding. But suffice to say, we will work hard to get service back by tomorrow morning, but that is not guaranteed. With that, I want to turn it over to Chief Kemper from NYPD Transit to say a few words. I'll come back for questions. Chief.
Thank you, President Davey. So this afternoon at about 3 o'clock, there were 2 transit canine officers who were assigned to this station, the 96th Street station. They were in the mezzanine area when they were approached by a male who said that he believes 2 trains collided downstairs. You know, based on that, the 2 officers within seconds were downstairs on that northbound platform, and what they came upon were 2 trains, both of them facing northbound, both of them side by side, and both of them were half in the tunnel and just about half out of the tunnel. The half that was out of the tunnel was adjacent to the platform area. Based upon what they came upon, they radioed that in, requested assistance, including additional police officers, as well as EMS and the fire department. They then boarded the trains in the attempt to see if they would come upon any injured passengers, which they did. They rendered aid, again requested EMS to respond to the scene, and then those officers, along with additional officers that responded, helped people off the trains and onto the platforms to safety. With that said, there were a number of individuals removed to local hospitals. Fortunately, as President Davies said, and as you'll hear from the fire department shortly, none sustaining serious injuries, which we're very fortunate. With that, I'd just like to commend the responding officers from the NYPD. Again, you know, no day is usual being a cop. Who could have thought of this? Who could have thought of just standing in a platform and being told that 2 trains derailed with multiple injuries? But the officer's response was exceptional. Everything we asked him to do. I'd also like to thank our partner agencies in the NTA and certainly in the fire department and EMS. Thank you.
Assistant Chief Mike Myers, M-E-Y-E-R-S. At approximately 1500 hours, our units were notified of 2 trains colliding. It took us about 3 minutes to arrive on scene. Once we arrived on scene, we began to do an assessment downstairs. They met up with their New York City Police Department transit counterparts downstairs, began to search for the emergency evacuation devices, which are devices that the MTA and the fire department have on each train station in order to help evacuate passengers to the train in case there's an instance like this, about being prepared in advance. They began to locate those devices and also doing a structural assessment of both the trains and also the train tracks, and as well as request power off. Again, in a situation like this, it's incredibly perilous if we operate on tracks and have people on tracks. that are live, because again, it causes a great danger to both the responder and also to people trying to get on and off the trains. So we requested that power off. The MTA complied with that, and we're able to start to begin evacuations of the folks on the train. Thankfully, in this case, as the trains collided, like they were talking about, my counterparts were talking about, we were able to coordinate together and get all of those folks off of the train without any large-scale significant injuries from that. I'll let EMS speak about the injuries in a second. But again, it takes, in these scenes, whenever we have multiple agencies operating, what's great about that is everyone comes together and makes it happen, right? Because at the end of the day, we all have the same goal in mind, and that's for all of us to go home safe, and for all the people of the city of New York who ride in our subways to go home safe. And again, that's hopefully what we got done here today. So I'll let EMS talk about the injuries.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you, Chief. Deputy Assistant Chief Ian, IAN Swords, SWORDS. This afternoon around 3 o'clock, EMS received multiple 911 calls reporting a train derailment. Upon our unit's arrival here on the scene, they were met with several patients, knowing that there was a train involved and the potential number of patients that could entail. They began multiple casualty incident triage, where we check every person as they come off the train for injury, and if they are injured, for the severity of injury. Fortunately, nobody was seriously injured. The injuries that were sustained were consistent with a low-speed train derailment, and all of those patients have been removed to area hospitals.
How many people total within that car?
I'm sorry? Excuse me?
How many people total were within that car?
That I don't know.
I was told that each train had about 300 to 500 people on it. We had to evacuate the one train, and then we also had to evacuate a train that was in the tunnel behind it through that original train.
And we had a total of 24 people injured out of those numbers.
Just to be clear on Chief, so the train that that derailed, about 300 or so folks were on that. What the Chief was referencing is there was a train behind it, was not involved in the incident, but was stuck. We brought that in here to 96th Street. That had another 300-400 customers on it as well. They were evacuated safely. So the incident train had a couple hundred folks, as best we can tell, but we evacuated at least one other train as a result of the power being shut down.
And the other was empty, right?
And then the other, so the two incident trains, one was in revenue service that had a couple hundred folks, as the Chief said, that was evacuated. The other train was empty of customers. 4 employees were on that train. That was the train that was disabled, that had been vandalized, and they were trying to fix it.
All right, other questions? Who's got it? Anybody?
Sorry.
Yes.
Was this operator ever, was there a switch problem? Where did the breakdown?
Yeah, so we're going to look at all those factors, obviously. Switch signal. At this point, there's nothing, or in equipment, there's nothing to suggest that it was equipment related. We will obviously look at human factors as well. I think it's a little too early to tell, but at this point, from what we can tell, the equipment was working as intended.
Yes, sir. Is it true that some people were evacuated from the incident train by being taken onto the empty work train?
That is true. Yeah, that is true. Let me EMS want to explain it? Or fire want to explain that?
They're evacuated.
Yep.
What was the question again, just so I get it?
True. Some folks are telling us that they were evacuated by being taken onto the empty work train that initially didn't happen.
Sure. So in order, like the biggest thing with whenever we're evacuating people from one of these trains, again, we don't want them down on the tracks, right? The tracks create a hazard, right? Uneven ground. We don't know, again, the condition of who we have walking on those trains. So our main goal, as always, is to do a structural assessment of the trains. In this case, we found that they were both structurally okay for us to walk on and evacuate people through. So we'd rather keep people off that track bed and keep them on the trains and get them back to the platform. It just makes for a much easier, smoother evacuation and a much quicker one to get people off the trains.
So through that work train, they were able to get to the platform?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, right here. Was the number 1 train using the new CBT signaling system?
No. Not that I'm aware of. No. Yeah, there's no CBTC on the number 1. So. No. There's no CBTC on the number 1.
All right. Anybody else?
Can you talk a little bit about how many cars were derailed, and then second, can you talk about security? Because you said that this train was vandalized. Cars were that you're coming off of people getting into a train a few days ago and taking it for a joyride, and then
Well, hold on. I didn't think of a joyride, but so there's a lot of narrative there. What's your question?
So you talked about security.
Sure.
You mentioned that this is vandalized.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, Chief, why don't you take that? Yeah.
So, as far as security, I opened up with when this occurred, we had NYPD cops in the station. They were on scene within seconds. They were here before 911 was even called. So if you want to talk about security, at least today in this station, 2 cops were on scene.
we're talking about the car reports that were cut before that had this train out of service.
Well, that's to be determined. I mean, that's right. That's to be determined as far as what occurred with that. That's an investigation. We don't have the answers for that yet. But as far as security in this station here, we had cops here.
All right, anybody else?
How many cars?
Last question, go ahead.
How many cars in that train?
10 cars.
10 cars.
10 cars.
Okay.
All right, thanks everybody. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Tony.
Getting the latest on a subway derailment on the Upper West Side, where we've been informed that there were 24 injuries. They were all minor. 2 trains were part of this derailment. One of them was apparently had been disabled and left on the tracks, and workers were on them trying to work it. The train had been vandalized. They couldn't move it. The second train, pulling up at a slow rate of speed, hit it, causing the derailment apparently of both trains. That one train that came up and hit the first one had about 300 passengers on board.
Yes, and then with the new information that we learned was that there was actually a train behind the first train that hit the abandoned train there, and that train had 300 to 400 passengers. That had to be evacuated as well because obviously the power needed to be shut off there on the tracks for everyone's safety. Now, we're also learning that the MTA cannot guarantee that service will be back up and running by the morning commute. They said that they will have crews there all night to fix repairs, but quote unquote, according to Richard Davey, the president of NYC Transit, he said it is messy down there.
Messy would be an understatement. The 1, 2, and 3 lines right now are a major mess, and if you got to get around, the West Side. You'd be better off using buses or any other trains. Okay, we have live team coverage of this derailment. Let's begin with CBS 2's Doug Williams at the scene. Doug.
Dick and Christine, as you were just reiterating, a few things that I was struck by just listening to that press briefing. As you've both mentioned, the number of passengers. We've talked about the 300 or so passengers that were on the train that collided with the train with no passengers on it, the MTA service train, but also that train behind it that left another 300 to 500 passengers abandoned behind this collision and waiting to be rescued. We've spoken to witnesses who were on this train, and passengers described the smells of gas, described about a half-hour period of time waiting for those rescue workers to get in. FDNY paramedics as well, who explained that this was immediately triage of a characteristic nature with lots of casualties, a mass casualty triage. We've shown you cell phone video taken from passengers in the moments after and the moments of rescue. I do want to play a portion of our interview with the passenger. Her name was Evelyn. She described hitting her head. She describes what she saw and what she felt. Take a listen.
When the trains collided, everyone was doing their own thing like usual. Everyone was on their phone. I was on my phone listening to music with my AirPods on. And like I said, I like my music pretty loud. But even through that, through noise cancellation and everything, you heard how loud we crashed into the other train. It was really loud that the other train literally got destroyed. Like the whole floor was just crunched up together. The seats they didn't even look like seats no more. The poles were all bent. It was just really bad. And smoke started coming inside the carts. Like it smelled a lot like gas, and it was really bad. Everyone was panicking because like it's gas. There's lots of us in there. People started getting claustrophobic. People dropped everything in the jolts. I hit my head against the window. People were getting hurt, basically.
So what Evelyn is describing there is the condition of the passenger car that she was in, but also the empty train car that passengers who were evacuated, according to Evelyn, had to walk through. And that evacuated train car that had been rear-ended, she described as completely destroyed. She said it was so slanted that they had to hold on in order to walk through it when they did get rescued by paramedics. Again, smells of gas and really moments of terror for the people that were still there. She described the claustrophobia that came along with the over half an hour of waiting. But again, this still feels like a very active scene because, as Richard Davey, the head of City Transit, explained, it's a mess down there. And not only are MTA officials, FDNY, paramedics trying to make sure that the scene is ready for the rush hour tomorrow morning, but there are lots of risks that come with something like this, a derailment, a collision, and it certainly sounds like they have a lot more work to do. We've seen more and more MTA crew members make their way past us where this press briefing just happened and down into the tunnels to try and make sure that everybody's out of there safe and that the conditions now are safe for the workers to go in there and clean things up. Dick, Christine.
All right, Doug, thank you for that update. Let's go now to Naveen Dhaliwal. She continues our team coverage. She is also live at the scene, and she spoke with some passengers who were on the train at the time as well. Naveen, what did they have to say?
Well, Christine, if it's messy downstairs, it is sure messy above ground as well. We're at 96 and Broadway, and Broadway right now, traffic is going through, and 96 traffic has reopened. But, you know, there are many passengers here looking for a way to get home, and right now, the 1, 2, and 3 lines have been suspended, and the MTA is saying that they're referring them to or take the A, B, C, and D lines to get to their destination. Now, again, this happened around 3 p.m. Many people were trying to, get ready to get home. It is a Thursday, first week after the holidays, and this is what it looked like underneath. This video is from a passenger who was on that one train. His name was Gregory King. He said he was heading home, hoping to get home early, but that didn't happen as, that train stopped, and moments later, it was sitting there, he says, for even up to, first it was 20 minutes, and then it was 30 minutes, and it even took up to an hour for firefighters to get on board that train. But you heard MTA officials say the reason it took that long was they wanted to make sure that the train was structurally safe before they boarded that train, and they did determine that both trains were structurally safe before they got on board, and that's when they started to remove passengers off that one train. Now, right now here, again, we are looking around, and it seems to be traffic is moving as smoothly as possible, but it is quite an active scene with fire officials still here. There is a lot to do downstairs, and you heard Doug say it himself, as well as MTA officials saying that, this is going to go out throughout the night, and they can't guarantee that this is even going to be wrapped up in the morning. So time will tell. We're live on the Upper West Side. Naveen Dhaliwal, back to you.
All right, Naveen, thank you.
Now, this derailment is affecting subway service throughout the city.
And it's affecting the commute home. CBS 2's Alicia Reed continues our team coverage. Alicia.
Dick and Christine, that's right. That derailment is affecting the rush hour crowd here at 72nd Street. As soon as commuters get inside that station, they're greeted by a number of MTA employees, and those employees are basically telling them, look, there's no service for the 1, 2, or 3 trains here, and that they're giving them options for the bus or the B and C train. Those trains are at Central Park West. That's 2 blocks away. Some people still have no idea this derailment even happened. They're on their way home from work or school, and they've been unplugged. Signs are posted in the station once people do get inside. Some have been using the map to try and figure out next steps, and it hasn't been particularly easy for one commuter who lives a few blocks from here. The senior citizen has been trying to get around town all day, and he's still having issues.
Going to the see my doctor on 241st, because the 2 train is the last stop out there. So I had to catch a yellow cab that cost me $60 to get there. You know what I mean? Now I got to go to Queens to get my medicine. You know, but I got up to 6 o'clock, so I probably make it.
Hopefully Jerry does make it to Queens in time. Now, there were some commuters that were thinking of sitting it out and waiting it out here at 72nd Street, but they eventually left before our live shot, and thankfully they did, now that we're hearing that this may not be restored until sometime tomorrow. Live on the Upper West Side, Alicia Reed, CBS 2 News.
Alicia, thank you for that update, and we do hope that that gentleman you spoke with is able to get his medicine. That was a rough day for him.
What a rough day. $60 cab ride. Stay with CBS 2 for continuing coverage on the train derailment and collision on air and streaming on CBS News New York. You can also find the latest developments on our website at cbsnewyork.com.
Okay, now to the story that everyone is talking about in the area, this snowstorm that's going to happen this weekend. It has us on red alert. We're getting more details on just how much snow could fall across the area.
Lonnie Quinn is here now with an update. Lonnie, what are we looking at?
Okay, guys, we're looking at a sizable snowstorm. I urge you all to keep checking in here regularly because we're going to get more and more accurate information the closer we get to the event. And when is the event? That has not changed. The timing remains constant. It's Saturday afternoon now into Sunday. And during that time period, Saturday night to Sunday, the National Weather Service has now issued winter storm watches. They started off this morning with Sullivan, Ulster, Dutchess, and Pike County. Well, they've now pushed it way to the south, just outside of New York City. It's not in New York City, but the significant snow is falling now farther to the south, but it's a rain-snow battle in New York City. So let me show you what the National Weather Service has issued. The winter storm watch extends now all the way down to inland areas of Fairfield County, inland Westchester County, over into northern Bergen County and points north. What does this mean? This is the potential, according to the National Weather Service, for 5 to 10 inches of snow. When you hear this information, we've made some adjustments in our forecast. We've taken all of our numbers, we've pushed everything a little bit more to the south. I think a good chunk of the city is still going to fall in that trace to 2-inch range. But now some of the northern burbs could be that 2+. I mean like a 2 to 4-inch range. They go north of 287, 4 to 8, north of 84, 8 to 12. But this line right here, between that gray and the white, this is a very interesting weather story. I want to share this with you when I come back in about 10 minutes or so. But you're going to want to hear what I have to say about that. But right now, guys, let's go back to you.
All right, Lonnie, thanks very much.
We have the latest forecast and updates from the CBS 2 weather team on our website. Find that at cbsnewyork.com.
Still ahead here at 5, we're continuing to follow the breaking news of the subway derailment and collision.
Plus, the red alert forecast for snow this weekend, the new winter storm watch, and much more coming up. Stay with us.
Now to breaking news in Iowa. 6 people were shot at a high school there.
The gunfire broke out this morning in Perry, which is located about 40 miles northwest of Des Moines. CBS 2's Jenna DeAngelis has more.
Once inside, they located multiple individuals with gunshot wounds. Officers immediately attempted to locate the source of the threat and quickly found what appeared to be the shooter with a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Investigators say there were 6 victims. One, a 6th grader at Perry Middle School, died. 4 of the surviving victims are students. The 5th was a school administrator. The suspected shooter was identified as 17-year-old Dylan Butler, a student at the high school.
Butler was armed with a pump-action shotgun and a small caliber handgun. Butler also made a number of social media posts in and around the time of the shooting.
The gunfire broke out in the high school before school started.
There were not many students, and it's our understanding that there was a breakfast program going on, so there may have been students of different grades.
Still, parents were deeply shaken.
The shooter was in the high school cafeteria in that hallway. It could have been her. She heard 3 gunshots that could have been pointed at her.
It was a text message this morning from my daughter, and it was absolutely horrifying. Like, that's one of the worst moments of my entire life, but the best phone call I got was saying that they were okay.
Close to 600 students attend Perry High School, which was put on lockdown at the time. The school is connected to the middle school with an elementary school just a few blocks away.
My brother called me saying that there's a shooting at the school. Luckily, he wasn't in the building. Don't really expect anything like this to happen.
Investigators say officers searching the school also found an improvised explosive device. They say that the state fire marshal, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms did render the device safe.
And we continue to follow that breaking news on the Upper West Side, where there's been a train collision and derailment that injured upwards of 19 people. More live team coverage coming up, and details on the impact to the commute that could stretch into tomorrow.
Also ahead, a warning about a popular vacuum brand that could catch fire, what consumers need to know.
And a family duped out of tens of thousands of dollars when they were victims of a cyber kidnapping. Details on the strange case coming up. Right now at 5:30, a train collides with a subway train on the Upper West Side. Several people are hurt and a lot of disruptions for the commute home tonight. Good evening, I'm Dick Brennan.
And I'm Christine Johnson. Welcome back to the broadcast. This derailment happened at 3 this afternoon at Broadway and 96th.
CBS 2's Naveen Dhaliwal is on the scene. She's been speaking to passengers who were on board at the time. Naveen.
Yeah, this is an absolute mess for commuters who are heading home or heading wherever they need to go. Right now, the MTA says that the 1, 2, and 3 trains are out of service, and they are suggesting commuters to be taking the A, B, C, and D trains. Now, here at 96 and Broadway is where it happened, and very active scene here still. We're going to step out of the way to have you take a look where emergency crews are still here, and those 2 trains are still underground, as you can imagine. Now, this is what we do know, according to MTA. They say 2 transit canine officers were approached by someone who said that 2 trains had collided. Well, those officers went to the northbound platform, and that's when they requested assistance. Now, boarded the train. They made sure before they boarded that train that structurally it was okay. They helped people off the trains. This is video from inside taken by cell phone of firefighters helping people off the trains. Now, we have come to learn that there are 24 people who were injured on one of the trains. Now, the one train had about 300 passengers on it. The other train that it collided into was not in service. Apparently, it had been vandalized, and there are about 4 employees on that vandalized train working on it. It's unclear as to how these 2 trains bumped into each other, but another one train was stuck behind the derailed one train with another couple hundred passengers on it. So right now we're looking at 24 injuries, non-life-threatening injuries, and they are looking. Oh, we do actually have an interview. We're going to toss to that right now.
It was a smooth ride until we got to like 96th Street. Then I heard the commotion and everything between 96th Street and 103rd. That's when I guess that's when the trains collided. And yeah, it was a big shocker to people. But luckily, me and some other guy that was on the train, we helped control the edginess of the people so they won't get all irate or start getting in a panic mode.
And that was Gregory King. He was on that one train that had derailed. He's just describing those moments, what happened. He said he was on that train for about an hour before the passengers were able to get off, and that's because the MTA says they made sure that the train was structurally okay before they boarded it. Again, 24 people right now injured with non-life-threatening injuries. Some of them have been transported to the hospital, and the MTA says that they will be here throughout the night. It is unclear as to when service will be back up. They're hoping by morning, but they cannot confirm that as of right now. We're live on the Upper West Side. Naveen Dhaliwal, CBS 2 News. Back to you.
All right, Naveen, thank you.
And now for more insight, joining us on the phone is Robert Paswell, a professor at City College of New York and also director of the University Transportation Research Center. Thanks for joining us here as we continue our team coverage on this train derailment. You know, we heard from Richard Davey, president of the NYC Transit, and he mentioned that it is quite messy where this incident took place underground, and the big question now here is the cause. He mentioned during his news conference that there appears to be no equipment failure at this point in time. What does that tell you?
Well, first of all, it's much different than it was an hour ago when everyone thought a train hit a work train. Here, there's a number 1 train obviously disabled, and another train probably slowed down, thought it was leaving the station, and might have plowed into it. Don't know if the driver had time to stop. That's something that has to be investigated. I think we can all speculate, but there is, fortunately, it wasn't a serious collision. Several people were injured, but most people were evacuated safely. That's due to the efficiency of a really well-trained train crew. And the worst part is that they won't be able to get service back until the morning. I'm surprised that the MTA doesn't have buses running along to take people up, rather than telling people to go to the A, B, C, D. Where are they going to find that? They're at 96 and Broadway. The trains aren't near there.
Yeah, good luck with that. I have to ask you again, though, about the equipment, which apparently they're saying is not a problem. Aren't there systems in place to prevent one train from running into another? I mean, I remember they used to call it a tripping system. I don't know what it is now, but there should be a system.
That's at speed. In other words, if you're going over a certain speed and there's a speed restriction, it trips the brakes automatically. And apparently the train wasn't going that fast. It was pulling in. I think none of us. We have to wait till they interview the locomotive operator and find out what was going on. And apparently one of the trains was disabled because of vandalism. So it's a slightly different kind of event than we were led to believe an hour ago.
You know, I wanted to get your thoughts on just the evacuation process. We learned that not only was the train that was involved in the collision, not only was that train, had passengers on that, but there was also a train behind that one that had an additional 300 to 400 passengers. So we're talking about, approximately 700 passengers that had to be evacuated from these trains. No easy feat there.
That's what makes the evacuation so slow. Is remember that I suspect by the time the second train was evacuated, the power was turned off. But you still don't want people walking down to the track. So evidently they evacuated everyone through one train. In other words, you go through the front of a train, through the back of the other train, and then out through the door onto the platform, and then you're led in line up. No, they try not to keep people rushing or pushing, just sort of keep you in the line that you're in and move you up so everybody can be evacuated safely.
All right, Professor Robert Paswell of CUNY College, we really appreciate your expertise. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And stay with CBS 2 for continuing coverage on the train derailment and collision on air and streaming on CBS News New York. You can also find the latest developments on our website. That's at cbsnewyork.com.
A fire claims the life of a child in the Bronx, and now violations have been issued to the homeowner.
Security camera footage shows people exiting what looks like a smoky doorway at 4011 Barnes Avenue. Some are seen carrying others out after the fire began around 5:20 Wednesday night in the basement. On a bed there, the FDNY found a 5-year-old boy. He did not survive and has been identified as Kashmir Marquis.
They broke the window with the big ladder of the truck, and they started pulling people out. But then I saw them when they brought the little kid out. He didn't look like he was doing too well.
The Department of Buildings says it performed an inspection of the home and found 3 illegally constructed single-occupancy rooms in the basement and no secondary means of getting out. 2 women were treated for smoke inhalation. The cause of the fire under investigation.
An update now on yesterday's fatal shooting involving New York State Police. Investigators say 35-year-old Rakeem Tillery of Albany opened fire on troopers Stephen Masali and also Ronald Raymond after they stopped his car on I-87 in Rockland County. Troopers returned fire, killing Tillery. His car was connected to an attempted homicide in Albany earlier on Wednesday. Troopers escaped serious injury, and the Office of the Attorney General is now investigating.
A former high-ranking nurse at Nassau County Correction Facility is charged with smuggling a knife to an inmate. Yasmin Talbot of Levittown, a 10-year vet of the jail medical team, is accused of giving the 1-inch ceramic knife to inmate Christopher Wright, who told her he needed it for protection. Jail officials say they discovered the knife during a body scan of the inmate. Prosecutors say the pair communicated in 400 phone calls in which Talbot allegedly shared confidential locations of other inmates.
She's a person who is a public official in power, and to use that power to put others in danger, her own staff, the jail staff, and other inmates, is unfathomable.
Mrs. Talbot vehemently denies the allegations against her in this indictment. She looks forward to clearing her reputation.
Now, Talbot resigned in the wake of this investigation and was recently working at a Hempstead nursing home. She's also facing unrelated drunk driving charges. Wright, who prosecutors say has 22 unrelated arrests, was released without bail.
The New York City's teachers union and Staten Island leaders are suing the MTA over congestion pricing. It also names federal and state agencies as defendants. CBS 2's Lisa Rosner has more on this.
Congestion pricing coming. Staten Islanders are already bracing to pay the toll for the Verrazano Bridge to Brooklyn and then another $15 just to cross into Manhattan's business district.
So we're going to stay in home.
So it's, no, this is too much.
But money isn't the only issue, says Staten Island's borough president.
It will increase traffic. It will make air quality worse.
Staten Island officials add that they feel this will only increase pollution to parts of the borough that already have high rates of asthma. Teachers will not be exempt from the congestion pricing toll to get to work, and some of them have joined the borough president and UFT in filing a lawsuit against the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Federal Highway Administration, the state and city DOT, and the MTA.
They're going to raise the money off the working and middle class of this city. Those are the folks who are going to pay for this program, and we're sick of this.
The cost of gas, the cost of insurance, the cost of all these things is adding up, and then everything isn't getting higher.
The plaintiffs say because the borough doesn't have a subway or a commuter rail, most residents drive to work. They say the surveys done by the MTA are not accurate because it didn't take into account the cost of the congestion pricing toll, as well as the change in driving patterns post-COVID. In a statement, the MTA said in part the environmental review process took 4 years, adding if we really want to combat ever-worsening clogged streets, we must adequately fund a public transit system.
I think climate change is real. I think we have to do whatever we can to get less people on the road.
The borough president believes more people will come through Staten Island to get to and from New Jersey to circumvent the Manhattan toll. The Riders Alliance said in part, Staten Islanders will benefit from congestion pricing and faster express bus speeds in the central business district, less traffic over the bridge through Brooklyn and into Manhattan. In the St. George section of Staten Island, Lisa Rosner, CBS 2 News.
The state DOT and also the Federal Highway Administration told us that they don't comment on pending litigation.
Governor Hochul unveiled a new plan to combat the maternal and infant mortality crisis. It's one of several proposals the governor is announcing ahead of her State of the State address next week. New legislation will establish a statewide paid prenatal leave, and it'll expand access to doula services and eliminate co-pays for pregnancy services. Will also reduce unnecessary C-sections that put mothers at risk and provide mental health resources.
There are too many moms who cannot take time off work to take care of themselves. And that is part of the problem here, especially for minimum wage workers or hourly workers.
Governor Hochul still wearing a sling after a gym injury, and you can watch the governor's State of the State address next week live Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on CBS News New York.
Still ahead here tonight, the FDA investigating several weight loss drugs, the concerns over potential side effects, including hair loss, and how those drug makers are responding. Also ahead,
the money was just strewn on the floor like half-eaten bills, and the envelope was completely gone.
And it sounds made up, but a Pennsylvania couple is left shocked after their pup devours $4,000 in cash. What they did next besides cry.
Oh, no.
Tonight, weight loss drug warnings. The FDA is investigating potential dangerous side effects associated with popular drugs used for diabetes and dieting. There are increased concerns about possible hair loss and thoughts of suicide in patients using Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, and Zepbound. Last year, the FDA investigated reports of intestinal obstruction linked to Ozempic. Now, Novak Nordisk makes Ozempic, and Wegovy said the company, quote, stands behind the safety and efficacy of all our medicines when they are used as indicated and under the care of a licensed healthcare professional. Drug maker Eli Lilly issued a statement about Mounjaro and Zepbound saying, quote, patient safety is our priority and we're collaborating with the FDA.
Consumer Reports is warning about the danger of plastics in your food. The group says the use of chemicals to make plastics more durable is widespread in supermarket foods and also fast foods. According to its report, the chemicals can seep into the food and have been linked to health risks, including diabetes and reproductive disorders. Consumer Reports wants the chemicals banned and is calling on regulators to reassess the safety of plastics that come into contact with food during production.
Now, a consumer alert, a warning about a fire risk involving a popular vacuum brand. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission is urging people to stop using Zaughton Inc. lithium-ion replacement battery packs for Dyson vacuums. The agency says the battery packs are sold on Amazon and have not been verified to meet national safety standards and could catch fire. They're also not a Dyson authorized product. There have been 3 reports of fires so far and 1 person treated for smoke inhalation.
TGI Fridays abruptly closed 36 of its restaurants this week, many of them right here in our area. 7 were in New Jersey, 5 in New York, and 1 was closed in Connecticut. The company said the stores were underperforming and were closed as part of a long-term plan to revitalize the brand. The nearly 60-year-old chain is known for its happy hour specials, appetizers, and frozen drinks.
You know the tale, the dog ate my homework? Well, a Pennsylvania couple says their dog ate $4,000 in cash, and they got the proof the hard way. Clayton and Carrie Law says their 7-year-old golden doodle named Cecil couldn't resist the money that was piled on their kitchen counter. There were half-eaten bills on the floor. The bank told the couple that if they could tape together the bills with visible serial numbers, I guess after you wash them, it would replace them. The vets said they should monitor Cecil for a couple of days.
He's eating and going to the bathroom normally. Don't worry about it.
I was like, I'm just going to follow him and see if anything comes out for a couple of days. And it did, yeah.
The money was going to be used to pay for a new fence. The couple managed, as they put it, to recover $3,550.
Oh, that was the majority of it,
They
right?
got most of it, but you know, more could be coming, so keep an eye on that.
How do you get mad at that face, though? Look at the face.
Innocent, very innocent.
Oh.
But who knew? Cash could be tasty.
You know, I was thinking, like, I wouldn't bother, but that much money, I would be following around, too, like...
Literally, you meaning...
The bowl.
It's called money laundering, literally, in this case, yeah.
Very good.
Lots going on in the weather department. Lonnie, everybody wants to know how much snow and when.
There's so much going on. And then we got that storm behind this, which is a big rainstorm, is getting bigger and bigger as well. We've issued now another red alert for Tuesday of next week. But let's get into everything that's outside right now. You've got some clouds overhead. Okay, the story now, how cold it's getting. It's 39 degrees as of right now. The wind chills are making it feel colder. Tonight, we're going to take that 39 down to an overnight low of 27. All right, but the winds are an element. So 27 degrees early tomorrow morning in the city. Guys, that's the coldest feeling air we've had in a long time around here. Feeling like the teens for basically everybody. Feeling like 11 in Monticello, maybe feeling like a 20 or 21 for Poughkeepsie. 38's the high temperature tomorrow, so you got lots of sunshine, sort of ineffective. It's a cold day out there. Part of the equation, right? We're talking about a storm coming in. Is it a winter storm? Well, you bet it's a winter storm, but is it snow or is it rain? Well, with the cold air setup, a lot of folks start off as snow. Some folks will be turning over to rain. Some folks hold on to all snow. Watch what we're talking about. So here we go. Saturday morning, you've got the clouds by Saturday, 1:30. The system is now just starting to make its way in. Down on the Jersey Shore, you've got some rain. Raritan maybe seeing a couple of flurries at 1:30 Saturday. Look at the picture at 4:30. New York City catching some snowfall. The rain-snow line just nipping at Staten Island over towards Brooklyn. We're going to watch that rain-snow line push to the north. So I do believe you could very well see even the boroughs start off with a little burst of snow, and then it turns over to rain as that warm air just pushes up. This is 10 o'clock on Saturday night. Notice, though, areas north of the city, tell you, north of 84, we're talking the potential to see, I mean, there have been some numbers pumping out a foot of snow in that area. We've got 8+. And here you go, 1 o'clock on Sunday morning. What's interesting now is the storm is starting to pull out. So as the storm exits, now it brings in another reinforced jolt of colder air, because I do think we're going to get to that point where it's just going to be too mild for all snow. And now New York City pops back. We were snow, we went to rain, now we pop back to some snow here on the back end as it leaves the area. And there you go, Sunday 11:30, nothing but a few leftover little snowflakes out there. So how much snow are we talking about? We told you we took all of our numbers and slid everything a little bit more to the south. New York City, a good chunk of the boroughs, a trace to 2 inches or less. Then some of the northern boroughs, there's northern Manhattan, there's the Bronx, maybe 2+, like a 2 to 4. And then you're 4 to 8 north of 287, 8 to 12 north of 84. And this red line, all right, we put this in here. Remember me telling you there's a story here. Between where you see the 2 to 4 and the 4 to 8, that red line defines who's going to see an all-snow event, which is north of it, and who's going to see that rain-snow battle south of it, all right? And then you get way down south, like into the Jersey Shore, around, say, Monmouth, Ocean County. This looks to be just all rain for you. European numbers are now pumping out a bigger number for the city at 5.2. You've seen 11.5 in Monticello, a 0.2 in Belmar. And the GFS on board with the same setup, not the exact same numbers. They're saying 3.3 in New York City, an 8.2 Monticello. But notice, bigger numbers the farther north you go, with smaller numbers the farther south you go. And the winds are going to be an issue as well, gang, especially out around the east end as this storm is pulling out. Sunday could be some big winds out there. I saw the projections of some possible 40 or 50 mile per hour gusts. So, yeah, red alert Saturday late into Sunday. Monday's a break. Tuesday, another red alert. That's a lot of rain. I'm talking the potential for maybe 3 inches of rain. Wow. So now you put that on top of already saturated ground. We've had so much rain, and now maybe 5 to 12 inches of snow in some areas. There's going to be some flooding problems.
Yeah, there will be. Thank you, Lonnie. Keep us posted. Yep. Still ahead, a family lost tens of thousands of dollars in a case of cyber kidnapping.
We'll tell you how the scam works and how experts say you can protect yourself.
A family duped out of tens of thousands of dollars when their son was the victim of cyber kidnapping. The strange case shows just how scams are growing more complex. CBS 2's Bradley Blackburn has the details on what you can do to protect yourself.
On New Year's Eve, authorities found a 17-year-old student camping alone in the Utah snow after he was forced into the wilderness by virtual kidnappers. The exchange student was told his family in China was in danger unless he isolated himself away from society and law enforcement. Police say the online scammers ordered him to take pictures they used to extort money from his relatives. The boy's family sent some $80,000 to the criminals before they realized it was all a hoax. U.S. authorities worked with Chinese officials on the case. They believe other exchange students have been targeted in similar scams.
We do apologize for that audio trouble. Once we get that fixed, we'll bring you the rest of that story perhaps later on tonight or even on our digital channel, CBS News New York. In the meantime, some scammers have used AI to fake voices or images of supposed kidnapping victims. And experts say that criminals often gather information from online posts and then use it for social engineering. Just beware. Thank you for joining us at 5 today on CBS 2 and also streaming on CBS News New York. I'm Christine Johnson. The news at 6 starts right now with Dana Tyler and Dick Brennan.
This is CBS 2 News at 6.
Right now at 6, breaking news, a chaotic evening commute after two subway trains collided and derailed on the Upper West Side. Dozens of people are hurt. Thankfully, no serious injuries. Good evening, I'm Dick Brennan.
And I'm Dana Tyler. That breaking news is how we begin. The pictures we have here just into our newsroom showing the derailed trains near 96th and Broadway. First responders evacuated hundreds of people from one of the trains. The other train was empty. We have live team coverage tonight of the collision, derailment, and the ripple effect for commuters all across the city.
We begin with the latest from the scene. CBS 2 Doug Williams is live near 96th and Broadway. Doug.
Dick and Dana, as you can see and hear, it's still an active scene. There was just moments ago still a fire truck parked behind us that has since moved, but the entrance to the subway station behind me has been very active as emergency and rescue crews continue to make their way down in what will be an effort that will take hours and into the evening. And some of the video that we've gotten into our newsroom, the cell phone video of passengers, because this was such a shocking moment that's been described to us as a jolt, most of the video that's come into our newsroom is of the moments the rescue efforts were happening. And we've basically had described to us over a half hour of terror waiting for the arrival of some of those rescue crews. They were greeted with applause by many of the passengers on these very crowded train cars. Here's one passenger named Evelyn. Want to play one of her answers earlier in an interview talking about what she saw and witnessed.
When the trains collided, everyone was doing their own thing like usual. Everyone's on their phone. I was on my phone listening to music with my AirPods on. And like I said, I like my music pretty loud. But even through that, through noise cancellation and everything, you heard how loud we crashed into the other train. It was really loud that the other train literally got destroyed. Like the whole floor was just crunched up together. The seats were they didn't even look like seats no more. The poles were all bent. It was just really bad. And smoke started coming inside the carts. Like it smelled a lot like gas, and it was really bad. Everyone was panicking because like it's gas. There's lots of us in there. People started getting claustrophobic. People dropped everything in the jolts. I hit my head against the window.
And Dick and Dana, just since we've been listening to Evelyn's answer just now, MTA President Jen Oliver made his way behind us and down into the subway station. So again, MTA officials continue to arrive. And we've seen the Office of Emergency Management posted a few pictures on social media that show really the lean of what was the abandoned one train that had been vandalized, that ran into the crowded one train, the passenger train. And that was something Evelyn described. They had to walk through, when they were evacuated, they had to walk through the train cars of that evacuated train, and she described having to hold on just to walk through those abandoned train cars. It was so badly damaged, she said, we didn't even recognize the subway poles. The seats didn't look like seats. So that was the car that took the majority of the damage, and luckily those train cars had been abandoned. Again, it was a service train, but really it was just a decommissioned one train that had been vandalized. The other one was full of passengers on a crowded Thursday afternoon. For now, we're live here in the Upper West Side. Doug Williams, CBS 2 News.
All right, Doug, thanks very much.
So the subway derailment and the collision making it difficult right now and for, well, we'll find out how long, for hours, for people to get around.
CBS 2's Alicia Reed continues our team coverage from the Upper West Side. Alicia.
Dick and Dana, that's right. This derailment is affecting rush hour. As soon as commuters walk inside this 72nd Street station, they're being told there are no trains here. MTA employees are on standby right inside the station and telling them, hey, the 1, 2, or 3 trains are not working, but there are nearby options. There's the bus or the B&C train at 72nd and Central Park West. That's about 2 blocks away. Now, we did notice a language barrier that's been an issue for some people trying to figure out what's going on. There are passengers on their way home from work or school who had no idea they'd be dealing with this level of subway disruptions tonight. Signs are posted inside the station, and people have been using the map to try and figure out next steps. One mother and daughter duo that we spoke to, they were on their way to Mount Vernon to drop off Christmas gifts, and they decided they'll just have to do it another day. And another man heading home, he's taking this all in stride.
I take like 2 or 3 down to 42nd Street, and then I switch to like a R or N or W, going towards Long Island City.
And now?
I know, I have to figure it out. I didn't know. I might have to walk a few blocks up and see on Columbus Circle. Maybe can catch another train there.
I don't know what we're going to do. No, another day. Today is not possible. Wow. And look at the time.
Yeah, it's not late.
Yeah. And I had to work tomorrow morning.
Now, some folks initially were thinking they would wait it out, but decided eventually to either take the bus or another line. Great idea, seeing that we're now finding out this may not be restored until sometime tomorrow. Live on the Upper West Side, Alicia Reed, CBS 2 News.
Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you. And again, there are a lot of subway disruptions because of this. Right now, parts of the 1 and 3 are suspended. Train service is suspended between South Ferry and 137th, City College in both directions. There's no 3 train service between 42nd and 148th, and it is extremely limited between 42nd and Wall Street. Wow. On the 2 line, there is no service between 110th and Borough Hall, and extremely limited between the Bronx and Harlem. The 5 and 8 lines have delays, and the 4 line also has delays, with some trains making local stops. As they put it, a complete mess. And the story is still breaking. We'll bring you updates as we learn more here on CBS 2 and online on cbsnewyork.com.
Okay, time for your first alert forecast. All this week talking about the shift of the forecast as we're expecting snow this weekend.
Yeah, major story. Lonnie Quinn is here with numbers and who gets the most, who might get a lot. Or you're talking about a dusting in some places? Wow,
okay.
That would be nice.
Listen, I think some places are going to see nothing but rain,
Wow.
okay? But you talked about everything shifting, Dana, and there has been a shift. We now see the significant snow pushing more to the south. So this morning we had a winter storm watch issued by the National Weather Service that included Pike, Ulster, Sullivan, Ulster, and Dutchess. Well, now look, it's all been expanded down to include inland Fairfield County over towards northern Bergen, everything north of that. The potential, according to the National Weather Service, this is 5 inches or more for anybody in that range. So with information like that, let me show you where they're coming from. They're watching the storm come in with snow. This is around 4:30 in the afternoon. That's snow in New York City. But you've got to watch that rain snow line. Yeah, it's all rain down on the Jersey Shore. That rain snow line pushes to the north. The city gets into heavy rain, but as it exits, it's now pulling in the cold air again. You're back to snow. So what we've had to do is we've had to take those bigger numbers and push everything now down to the south. New York City, I think a good chunk of the city is still in a trace to 2-inch range. Some of the northern boroughs could be at 2 to 4, and then you go north of 287, 4 to 8. It's 8 to 12, north of 84. So a real sizable storm. We haven't seen one like this in quite a while around here, but again, the big numbers, we feel confident. This really hasn't changed north of New York City for the big numbers. Guys, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Lonnie. Talk to you in a few.
Yep. Lots of folks are actually excited to see snow in the forecast, and it's not just kids who like to go sledding.
CBS 2's Nick Calloway went to speak with some people who depend on snow to make a living.
It's starting to finally look like snowblower weather again. The wintry forecast is welcome news at the Sharp Shop in Midland Park, New Jersey.
Whether it snows or not, it's them predicting it.
Mechanic Josh Filippini has been working at the Sharp Shop nearly 20 years, selling and servicing small engine power equipment like lawnmowers and snowblowers. The bone-dry winter last year was difficult.
Not like it used to be. We need snow. We need them to predict snow and hope for the best.
In fact, down here in the basement of the Sharp Shop, you'll find all the snowblowers in stock from last winter that still have not sold. There are close to a dozen more in the next room. Around the corner, employees at R&S Landscaping like to spend the winter months plowing and shoveling snow.
Well, last year was tough because you buy all the product beforehand, which costs thousands of dollars, and there's no use for it.
We caught up with employees in their snow planning meeting ahead of the storm.
We're hoping, we get a fair amount of snow this year, and they're anticipating a good amount of snow, so we're hoping.
One town over, shoppers at Home Hardware in Waldwick are stocking up on the usual, shovels and salt, for the first time in a long time.
I miss looking at it. I miss the beauty of the snowfall. I do not miss shoveling it.
There are plenty of snow blowers for sale here too. Of course, if there is any real snow, they will sell fast. In Waldwick, New Jersey, Nick Calloway, CBS 2 News.
They'll be selling fast. Stay with CBS 2 as the forecast. How about this word? Evolves. The forecast is now evolving. We have full coverage this weekend as snow begins to fall. Look for the latest here on air and streaming on CBS New York. And you know what? That's fair, because when you have that rain-snow line there in the middle, that's a killer for where the forecast is. That makes the job interesting, shall we say.
Yes. Mayor Adams announced today he is suing the bus companies transporting asylum seekers from Texas to New York City and also neighboring towns in New Jersey. The video here from Texas shows asylum seekers getting bracelets with barcodes with New York as the destination. This happening before they get on buses. The mayor is suing 17 charter bus companies in all for $708 million to cover the city's cost of carrying for more than 33,000 migrants bused here from Texas.
Governor Abbott's continuing use of migrants as political pawns is not only chaotic and inhumane, but makes clear he puts politics over people.
Governor Hochul is supporting the mayor's lawsuit. Texas Governor Greg Abbott called the suit baseless. None of the bus companies have commented.
New Jersey is reporting its lowest number of shootings in the state in 15 years. Governor Murphy says last year 924 people were shot. That's down 13% from 2022. 191 of those victims died. That's a decrease of 8%.
Not going to tear our rotator cuff patting ourselves on the back, believe me. This is a journey. I think we should be proud of the progress we've made, but we should be sober that we still have a long way to go.
And Governor Murphy said that this is the first time that New Jersey recorded fewer than 1,000 shooting victims since it began tracking gun violence back in 2009.
All right, we have another subway story. This one is about trains taken for joyrides in the train yard.
The culprits were caught on camera, while MTA officials say no passengers were in danger.
And you could soon see first responders with flashing green lights, what they mean, and what to do if you see them. Looking for the people who took a subway train on a joyride last Saturday in Queens. Police say the suspects got into a vacant R train near the Forest Hill 71st Avenue station and drove the train on storage tracks. The MTA says the suspects may have used a stolen key.
Was like locking your car and having a LoJack on it, but someone stealing the LoJack key and having a coat hanger to open the car and then hot wiring the damn thing. That's exactly what happened.
The MTA says the train was never in danger of actually leaving the yard and going onto active train tracks. Nothing was damaged, nobody was hurt, and again, police are still searching for the joyriding suspects.
Westchester County is building a network of mobile crisis response teams. These are teams, they're trained experts who respond to mental and behavioral health emergencies. Now a new law, green lights, helping them get where they need fast. CBS 2's Tony Aiello explains what you'll see and how to respond.
It stems from police reform efforts, the creation of mental and behavioral health teams to respond to people in crisis.
That individuals with mental health needs should be approached and should be helped not by law enforcement, but by professionals who are trained in mental health and mental health crisis.
Deputy Commissioner Joe Glazer says as these teams are dispatched, they need to get to the scene ASAP. A new state of New York law allows crisis team members to install flashing green lights in their vehicles to alert other drivers they're on the way to a mental or behavioral health emergency.
When you have behavioral health crisis responders going out, they are no different than an EMS technician because in a health crisis, seconds matter.
Some EMS volunteers are already allowed to install flashing green lights. Soon, mental health crisis responders can do the same.
They are allowed, if necessary, to exceed the speed limit, but not at dangerous speeds. They're not allowed to go through red lights. It's really a courtesy light. It's really asking people to let you go through.
Unlike flashing lights used by EMS and police, drivers are not required to yield to flashing green lights, but are strongly encouraged to do so.
And these green lights represent individuals who are trying to get as quickly to help individuals in need, including those that we love.
You'll see more of the flashing green lights when the new law takes effect in May. Tony Aiello, CBS 2 News.
Snowfall totals for this weekend are still up in the air. Get it? Okay.
Pun intended.
Yes, some areas could see up to a foot, others just rain.
And whatever it is, we know we have to be careful, and Lonnie's keeping an eye out for us with the forecast.
Yeah, look, okay, the one constant in my industry is change. It changes every day, all right? And as of today, the significant snow has pushed a little bit more to the south. I still think if you go way down south, like Atlantic City, you're seeing just rain, and I still believe north of the area, it's been holding true. That's where we find the biggest snow totals. Right now, people are skating outside under a fine sky, but it's just cold. It's 37. Factor in some of that wind, and it feels even colder. I mean, you're going to take it down to 27 for your overnight temperature. That's on the thermometer. That's in New York City. Now factor in this wind that I'm talking about. It feels like 14 in the city. Boy, that's just a really cold start for everybody Friday morning. By the afternoon, you're hitting 38. So, I mean, you don't even get out of the 30s like ineffective sunshine, but it is bright outside, and you still have that wind blowing as well. What about our winter storm? Well, National Weather Service has put together this area shaded in blue. It's a winter weather advisory, winter storm watch. This is probably going to be bumped up to a winter storm warning for some areas. It has not as of right now. We have the watch that's in effect. This is from 6 p.m. Saturday until 6 p.m. on Sunday. So a 24-hour period right there, right smack dab in the middle of your weekend. So let me show you the storm right now. It's way out here around Albuquerque. It pushes towards the Gulf, refuels with moisture, and then makes its move into the area. So let's take a look at how this breaks down. Really, as I talked about the timing, that has not changed. It's still Saturday afternoon to Sunday. The brunt looks to be with the heaviest precipitation. And for some of you, that heavy precipitation is going to be rain. And for others, it's going to be heavy snowfall that's coming down. That's overnight Saturday. The biggest snowfall totals remain north and west. In New York City, it's that wet and windy combination, but you've got some snow mixed in as well. For the city, it looks to start as snow, go to rain, maybe finish up with some snow as well. Then another red alert is issued for Tuesday with a big rainstorm that's coming into the area. Watch what these winds are doing. Now, put this into motion, and you're taking yourself now to 4 a.m. Sunday morning. So I don't know who's going to be up and about on 4 a.m., but if you're out in Montauk at 4 a.m., a possible 51-mile-per-hour gust. I mean, that is a tough go right there. Saturated soil, trees could come down, power outages, things like that. How much snow, though? The European is suggesting in New York City a 5.2, smaller numbers south, bigger numbers to the north with an 11.5 for Monticello. That's the European. Now I'll show you the GFS. They're putting a 3.3 in the city, smaller numbers south, like a 0.6 for Toms River, bigger numbers on the board, 8.2 Monticello, 7.9 Newburgh. Now I do want to show you the graph model. They're suggesting a small number in the city. They see a lot of rain, okay, about a half an inch, nothing south, nothing really to the east, but you go north, you're finding much bigger numbers, maybe a 14.2 around Poughkeepsie. Pretty good takeaway from this is we feel confident north of New York City is where you're going to find the big numbers. We know that's going to happen. It's going to be north of 84. That's where you find the big numbers. And then south of the city, you're not going to find big numbers. A red alert, everybody needs to know this, Saturday 6 p.m. until Sunday 6 p.m. And that's when the National Weather Service is also issuing their advisories. And then you have another one on Tuesday for all rain, which could make some flooding problems.
Yeah, I mean, and even this weekend, if you don't get the rain, you don't get the snow, you get the rain, and there's flooding on the roads.
This is a tough situation. That's right. And thankfully, it is a weekend.
Yeah,
that's a good thing. Thank you. Otis is here now with what's coming up in sports. Otis.
All right, the Giants have a chance to wreck the Eagles' division chances, but Brian Daboll is preaching something else in the regular season finale. And the Mets didn't have to look too far to find a new center fielder. A former Yankee and Westchester native signs a one-year deal to return home and try to get the Mets back to the playoffs. That and much more coming up after the break.
And the CBS Evening News just minutes away. Here's Nora with a first look. Nora.
We've got a lot of news coming up. Our Guns in America series continues. Tonight, we look at technology that could help people survive shootings before help arrives at the scene. That's tonight on the CBS Evening News.
This is CBS Sports New York, presented by Ford.
Harrison Bader is New York kid through and through. The Westchester native spent 2022 and most of last season with the Yankees. Now he's coming back to the Big Apple, this time in Queens, signing a one-year deal with the Mets. The 2021 Gold Glover is expected to roam center field at Citi Field on a one-year, $10.5 million deal. Bader batted .237, 7 home runs, 46 RBIs, and a .627 OPS across 98 regular season games with the Yankees in 2022 and 23. But he's coming off a rough injury-plagued season, which led to him being put on waivers in August, claimed by the Reds. Bader is also familiar with Mets slugger Pete Alonso. The two played for the College World Series team at the University of Florida in 2015. All right, the Jets released Dalvin Cook so he could join a playoff team, and he picked a good one. The four-time Pro Bowl running back is signing with the Baltimore Ravens, the top seed in the AFC. You want to talk about going from the outhouse to the penthouse? All right, the NFL regular season wrapping up this weekend. The Giants will do that this Sunday against the Eagles at MetLife Stadium. Giants may be in the role of spoiler, a win by Big Blue, and the Eagles have no shot at winning the NFC East. That would go to the Cowboys. But head coach Brian Daboll isn't focused on what the game means to other teams. He's only caring about what it means to his Giants.